So I work at a small DC-based think tank. We're bipartisan, about 40 people, co-founded by a woman and run by a woman, interesting fact. And while I mostly focus on European security, my colleagues and I over the last year have focused on a project working on representation of women in the national security space in the United States. We've hosted roundtables, we've hosted media trainings, and we've done dozens and dozens of podcasts with women ranging from interns all the way up to military leaders and senior executive service in the government. And we've come across really, really interesting things, but I'll just touch on a couple of them. The first is that, as we've heard from my colleagues speak today, underrepresentation of women is still an issue. And it's surprising to hear because sometimes, when we started doing this project, I got a call from someone that said, I saw that you're doing a project on women in national security. Isn't this taken care of? I mean, is this really an issue anymore? And the answer is yes, it is. Even though women are graduating at the same rates and even sometimes at higher rates from the top policy schools around the world, as you get further and further up the ladder, fewer and fewer women are represented at the top. And there are many, many reasons for this, but I'll just highlight a couple. The first is that, and one of my colleagues mentioned this earlier, women, especially if they have familial obligations, oftentimes have to choose between working late hours and family. So in the government, hours are notoriously grueling, sometimes 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so when the decision has to be made between going and picking up a child from daycare or school and staying late to wait for that classified document coming across the high side and getting extra face time with your boss, you can't leave your kids sitting at school. So your colleague maybe is going to get more promotional opportunities out of that. The second is that there's a weird sort of self-selection thing that happens. If a woman is looking at a position and the requirements, and she looks at it and says, well, I only have 7 out of the 10 requirements for this position. I'm not even going to go for it. Whereas a man, no offense to any of the men in the room, might look at it and say, I've got 7 out of the 10 requirements here. I'm good. They've got to hire me. So we have that kind of weird sort of self-bias sometimes. The third thing that we've noticed is that men need to be a part of this conversation. Sometimes when you bring up women's issues, it's women talking to women, and we tried to fix that last year at our annual conference where we hosted an intentional all-male panel. And we hosted it at 9 o'clock in the morning, right before the Vice President of the United States spoke. So we thought, people are going to want to get there early and get a good seat for Vice President Biden. We're going to put the women in national security panel right at the beginning, and everyone's going to have to listen to it. So we kind of pulled a fast one, but it was really interesting, the kind of feedback that we got. But some of the ideas that we've come up with for men in this space is to sponsor junior women. Find young, promising women in this space, sponsor them, mentor them, and hire them, and help them become leaders in this field. And the last one I would say, and this is my favorite, many people in this room get media opportunities, and sometimes you get too many. So as a man, if you get a TV hit that you don't want to do, if you get asked to publish a piece that you don't want to publish, give the names of 5 women who instead could take that media hit or do that publication instead. So make women part of the conversation, make men part of the conversation, and let's fix it together.